while these guys are getting set up for this awesome turnout, you're in for a treat. This is Vicki Meek from the South Dallas Cultural Center, who has helped. Well, actually, she brought these guys. We're partnering with the Cultural Center to bring this program for you. I did mention the performance on Thursday evening. I'll have flyers over here. And Vicki, I don't know if you want to introduce them, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce them, but I'd also like to just sort of tell you a little bit about how we are able to do this. We are a partner in something called the National Performance Network. Oh, thank you. You have to show the sponsors that we actually want you to do. So, as I said, we are a partner in something called the National Performance Network, which is like 70 some odd performing arts presenters around the country, Latin America, and Asia. And we're able to bring international and national artists to Dallas so that we can share them with our community. And what they're particularly interested in is these kinds of residencies. So it's not just that we bring somebody here to perform and then they go away. The idea is that we bring them here to perform, but before that, to interact with community so that people will come to a performance actually knowing something about these artists. So Afro-Horn, which is, I'll introduce the players to you in a minute, are a group from New York. And I have a long-time relationship with the leader, Francisco Mora Catlett, because his mother, who was Elizabeth Catlett, was my mentor as a visual artist. So that's my personal connection to this group. But I also have a connection through the music. You know, we support jazz at the Cultural Center very heavily. And so I would like to introduce Francisco Mora Catlett, my brother.
I just want to say that we wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for her tireless. She's got more energy than I do. I'm finding it hard to keep up with her. She keeps us on the go. You know, she sent me to a radio station last night at 1 o'clock in the morning. And she said, you better be ready to be picked up at 10 o'clock this morning. And then she says, how you feeling? I'm feeling fine. I'm very excited and very happy that we're here. Yes.
So the band members that you'll be seeing today are over there in the corner adjusting his horn. Is Alex Hardy. Back there will be playing the acoustic bass. And the keyboard here is Juan Ortiz. The master percussionist, Roman Diaz. Sam Newsom on the part. I'll tell you what they're going to play, but I just want to thank you all for coming out and to let you know that this is a free concert, but if any of you want to go, I need to just know that, so I will reserve a seat for you if you want to attend the concert, because it's first come, first seated. So.
I also just want to thank the music department here, the humanities department, Student Life. So actually your fees as students go to support these things, so it's good that you take advantage of all this because you all pay for it, right? And we do have an ethnic studies program on campus, so a lot of these events are tied into the understanding and promotion of intercultural communication, sharing of cultures between groups, and so we're on the Richland website. So if you want to know more about other things like these types of events, you can go on there and look up the ethnic studies program, which is housed in world languages. So thank you again.
Okay, well, we get into tune-up together. I just want to say that I am most privileged of being, having the opportunity of working with this caliber of musicians. These musicians are not side-man people. They are all leaders and strong individuals in their particular field. Mr. Juan Ortiz has his own projects. His camerata, it's a symphonical chamber orchestra movement, focus on strings and piano and percussion. He leads his own, excuse me? Talk about your projects a little bit. Come on, don't be shy. He's shy. He's from Santiago de Cuba, where my wife comes from, and I love it dearly. Because I have a daughter that's from Santiago de Cuba also, so we were like a big family. But this is Salvador. Please talk to him about your projects, your individual projects. Okay, he has written for symphony orchestra, has worked with symphony orchestra as well. He leads his own quartet. He just got back from a tour from Europe with his own quartet. He did Paris, Berlin, No Berlin. No Berlin yet. Okay. He's a strong leader. We are very, very pleased and happy to have him, and an incredible professor. I admire him because of his harmonic and soloist structure. So we are real happy, real blessed, to have him here.
Thank you.
Juan Ortiz on the piano.
That was my speech.
Okay, now this is Alex Harding. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. You don't know mine? Anyway, here it is.
I know you.
Alex Harding from Detroit, Michigan. That's where I met Mr. Francisco Moore.
Go ahead.
1980.
No, please.
Anyway, I have several projects. I have an organ group, trio, I have a saxophone quartet. I have a trio I'm going to do with Juan here, myself, and drums with him. Been to New York 21 years. I play with a lot of people.
He's very shy.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
I'm glad to be here, sharing this information I have that people share with me, and that's what it's about.
Okay. Bill Green?
My turn?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Okay. Just kidding. No. I live in the Bronx now, but I grew up in Iowa. And
So yes, there are black people in Iowa.
yeah, she answered the typical question. Yeah.
They used to be.
When I got to Boston, to go to Berkeley, I was having a class with Bill Pierce. It was my first semester, my first week, and I gave my presentation. And afterwards he goes, because I didn't tell him where I was from, and he goes, I guess jazz is all over the world. Anyway, but I went to school in Boston, lived in Boston for several years, then relocated to New York, and started working as a musician there. First on the cruise ships, and then freelancing, play with different people, some people in the avant-garde music scene. And then I got hooked up with vocalist Jimmy Scott, and I toured and was his musical director and toured with him, internationally, and recorded with him as well for over 20 years. And left him a few years ago, and now, back to the freelance scene, and started a job at a club in Harlem, playing 3 nights a week. I could go on, but
No, don't.
yeah, I know.
He is one of the prime bases in New York City. Has worked with just about everybody. Let me introduce you, Roman Diaz. Roman Diaz is science on Afro-Cuban folklore. You're not just looking at a conga player or something like this. His knowledge and his conceptual creativity expands the entire spectrum of Afro-Cuban folklore. which is inclusive to the rich heritage of West African culture in Cuba. Group peoples like the Congo, the Arara, the Dahomey, Yoruba, Cameroon, the Abakwa people. He encompasses all of these things. If you need to talk to somebody or want to ask somebody about what's going on with Afro-Cuban folklore, he is the science, and we're very happy to have him because there's very few people with this kind of knowledge and life experience in the United States. He's probably one of the two. That's it. Roman Diaz. Some news can talk about himself.
I'll keep it short. Well, I divide my time between being a professor of jazz studies at Long Island University in Boston, in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, and also being a New York-based jazz musician. Thanks for the background. As you can see, I play the soprano saxophone, and I guess as far as what I'm working on musically, so like the projects that I've been most passionate about in the past, I would say 6 or 7 years have been playing solo saxophone, and the reason being, it allows me to, explore the sonic, all the different sonic parameters of the saxophone on a much more intricate level. So, and I try to integrate these things even when I'm playing with a large group, such as the Afro-Horn. So I'm happy to be here, and hope you enjoy the music and the lecture.
I'm not going to talk about myself, and I hope that you folks have maybe received the handout that I sent on the email. Anybody got the handout? Well, the handout is about the African identity in the tradition of jazz. That's what we do. We're going to play for you, in relationship to the African identity in jazz. And I'm not talking about an influence or a fusion. I'm talking about elements that are already in jazz music that at this point, especially in higher education, you should at least be aware that they do exist. From time to time, we have people that expose this thing and they talk very clearly about it. I wrote over here a rhythm. Jerry Roll Morton in the 1920s called it the Spanish theme. This particular rhythm is inherent in American music, period. It's one of the biggest contributions, of the African culture in American music. You can hear it everywhere. This is the Charleston figure, the same figure. This figure in Cuba is called a tresillo, which is 3 notes. It's a triplet, sort of basically a triplet, right? And it came also from the migrations of the Haitian people into the eastern part of Cuba, who in turn brought them into New Orleans and became part of the New Orleans scene. It's quite, and we'll talk a little bit about this later on. But right now what I want to do is show you with an sort of an arrangement that we made of the when the Saints Go Marching In, which is, everybody knows the Saints Go Marching In? Raise your hand if you don't know what the Saints Go Marching In is. So everybody knows. It's a spiritual, that is used in the funeral marches in New Orleans, right? And the center of reunion in the early part of the 19th century, it was a big plaza called Congo Square. Now it's an historical site in New Orleans, and if you don't know Congo Square, I would encourage you to find about it. This is where the African people met together and gathered. And after the migrations of the Haitian people that were in Cuba to New Orleans that duplicated the population, it became so huge that it alarmed the administration in New Orleans, and they went about the business, of dismantling Congo Square. So by the beginning of the civil right, the American Revolution, Congo Square almost didn't exist anymore. But now it's back in function. It's called also the Louis Armstrong Park. you know, Congo Square is still there. So I thought that this would be a real nice way to present the Saints. The Saints is sort of our ancestral people, you know, the people that died, that went after. So what we did is we linked a Congo rhythm, you know, from the tradition in the Afro-Cuban thing with the Saints go marching in. You will hear it, and as we develop, we will end up with the sort of the, you know, the New Orleans second line type form. Okay?
Can I just add one thing?
Go ahead.
Actually, one point about Congo Square, if you're not familiar with it, it's not that the African slaves actually met there. It was like like playing music and playing the drums and things like that were forbidden, except for one day a week, which was Sunday, and that's when they all met at this place called Congo Square. And of course, a lot of great music came out of that.
Mm-hmm. It's out of the dictionary, so what we call this the Saints at Congo Square.
Jaya lumba lumba, Jaya windanganga, Jaya lumba lumba, Jaya windanganga, Lobongo wan serere, Tawano tako wan simenso, oh ya ya, and you mariangera. Urando Sambe en Dios, somos, Santo Tomás, ven para creer. 3 personas distintas, un solo Dios verdadero. Guapo una Congo, guau.
Jazz, Second Line, New Orleans. Okay, so we're gonna open this for questions and a dialogue, if you would. We appreciate dialogue because that means that we're getting to you, and now we need you folks to get to us with your inquisitive minds and your curiosity. Everybody here is a music student?
No, actually just open to the public. So
This is
there's
open
all
to the
kinds
public.
of students, non-students.
We can talk culture, humanities, you know, so we're open. Anybody want to start the dialogue?
I can speak about physics if you like.
He's going to start the dialogue. Go ahead, Alice.
Any questions, guys? Uh-huh.
Well, I'm actually a music student.
Okay.
I was a little bit confused by the notation that you put up there. I don't see a stem on everything. And what time signature is the Spanish taken?
Well,
That's in
that's
9-3. No, it's in 4-4.
Four.
Or 9-3.
Yeah.
Let me make it a little bit more
Okay.
more okay. 4-4.
Okay.
Right. This is a dotted
quarter.
quarter.
Okay.
This is another
Dotted
dotted
quarter.
quarter.
Makes 3 beats.
Right.
One
And
more
then
makes
this is
4.
a 1/4.
Okay.
Okay. You want to play that? Can you clap this? You know, even in reggaeton, you know what I'm saying? You got that. It's everywhere. You know, and if you're a jazz musician and you play drums or something like that, you have to know how to swing with this. It will make your music get up and go. That's what Jerry Roll Morton used to say, because he would play this particularly, you know, rhythmic figure in the left hand and the piano and right time on the upper one. So it's like 1, 2, and 1, and 2, and 2, swing. Come on.
I have a question about your intro. It seems pretty cool without anybody at the same time. Did that come from the cultural aspect of Afro-Cuban rhythm, or what was the
La introducción,
inspiration?
maestro. Y todo lo que fue lo que te hizo con la introducción.
La introducción es sobre los cantos, los grupos de Congo tienen varias formas de comunicarse con su cultura, ¿no? Desarrollándose dentro de una cultura mágico-religiosa.
The diversity of you know, African presence groups in Cuba, especially the Congos in this case, have a unique approach to be able to communicate, you know, with inside of their magic religious, you know, beliefs.
Entonces este canto que nosotros hicimos a continuación es un canto que trata la manera de comunicarse con sus ancestros.
So, following into the format, you know what I'm saying, of the saints in Congo Square and what he was talking about, we're trying to find a way to communicate with our ancestors, with our ancestral
Por eso se utiliza palabras como yaya, lumba, lumba, cuenda, nganga, locongo, tao, base, rere, guara, taco, guasimenso. ¿Me entiendes? Se está hablando con los
That's why you
antepasados.
utilize all this language, which is derivative of the Congo people, you know, and it's trying to actually reach or make contact with these ancestors.
Y luego después se hace una saludación a su creador supremo, que en este caso sería Zambi. Entonces uno dice, jura Dios Zambé, ¿me entiendes?
And then you do an allusion to the greater creator, which in this case the name is Zambis. You know, so you say,
Es como una plegaria.
it's like a prayer, you know.
Y entonces después, bueno, somos no somos, que todos los que estamos presentes esperamos que seamos de la misma corriente y seamos hermanos.
And then he follows up with somos or no somos, which means are we or we're not? And we hope that we all are, you know, and we're following the same current.
Y se habla entonces también de la Trinidad, que ya pasa a ser un carácter universal donde decimos tres personas distintas en un solo yo.
And then it passes on to the Trinity, which is a universal character of the three aspects, you know, in religious matter, which is, you know, it says
why that piece sounded unique or maybe strange to you was that there were pretty much 4 different things going on. Like you had Afro-Cuban folklore, you had free jazz, you had traditional New Orleans, and you had blues. So when you put all of those different elements together, you get this sort of weird concoction of something that sounds groovy, spiritual, ethnic. So it's a very unique mix. So it's not the typical when the Saints go marching in that you're going to hear if you put on Louis Armstrong record.
But it also seemed like it was apropos because of the way in which, if you know anything about calling the spirits and what have you, the way in which one would call was to create that kind of noise to bring the spirits. So it seemed right to have that be the opening into that particular song.
It's definitely part, you know, of what we call now the identity of the African elements, you know, in jazz music. In the African tradition, you know, and if you study a little bit on musicology, you will see that the rhythms are polyrhythmic, which means several rhythms running on at the same time. You know, there's another aspect for it, which is the call and respond. That was inherited here. You know, sometimes Alex will call, some will respond, or the other way around, you know. These are aspects that are already in jazz, you know. They don't need to be brought from the outside and say we're doing a combination or an influence or a fusion of something. And this is what we are working on, you know, working with those elements that are already inside, those African elements that are already inside of jazz. You know, when John Coltrane decides to write Africa and record Africa during the 60s, it's the same, he's alluding to the same thing, you know. It's something that is already in the music. Questions, please.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, when you had like the call and response, was a lot of that improvisatory, or when did y'all like have that pretty
Strictly
Moment.
right. And it's part of the New Orleans tradition, you know. If you listen to New Orleans at the beginning, you know, the sort of, you know, the so-called Dixieland thing, everybody was improvising at the same time. You know, some people say that it took Louis Armstrong, powerful improvisation, to stop everybody from improvising and listen. You know, and this is when the solo improvisational came about. But still, you know, and within the makeup of it, you know, in the African tradition, you know, somebody stands out and everybody supports. It's sort of a democratical way of doing things. You know, the community support to the individual. Something else that this music, you know, affirms strongly is that you have to be your individual. You have to be your own people. So you have to sound like yourself. You can't sound like nobody else. Of course, we learn from imitation. You know, we imitate something else so that we can, you know, but after a while, you know what I'm saying, we have to start sounding like ourselves, which is what is, because every human being is individual, and we're all different, you know. And what this African, you know, identity, you know, emphasizes is that the individual must sound as himself, not as somebody else. So you can tell the difference between Charlie Parker and John Coltrane, you know, they don't sound the same. They're very strong individuals, you know, and between Miles Davis and Clifford Brown, you know, and between Sam Houston and Sidney Bechet. Alwan Ortiz and Oscar Peterson, you know. It demands that you do sound like yourself.
And I will also add that, you know, I mean, we were having a call and response and a conversation, but it was all improvised, but it's improvised sort of within a context, you know, because we're improvising over a tune. There is a certain harmonic base that all of our ideas are based off of. So we're improvising, but there is some type of structure, but it's just not to the point where everything that we play is predetermined. You had a question.
How often do you find when you're out and about with other jazz musicians that there's some sort of superficial Latin thing that they do or Cuban beat that they do that's not true to the real deal, and how do you handle that? Do you give them something to listen to? What do you say?
Well, I think, another question for you, but so we try to fight against the stereotypes. You know, the way that I see it, that's why one of the reasons I have so much fun playing these specific sounds is because we are thinking about Cuban or Latin or patterns that, you know, we are dealing with groups and essence, we're dealing with the foundations of the material that we all share on stage. And we are confident that pretty much we connect at some point without divide nationalities or styles, or this is a kilo pattern, it's a 3-2, it's a 2-3, and then no, it's a 3-2, no, it's a 2-3, and then it's a pattern and stuff like that. We kind of put everything together in the same pot and create music. And music, with this, the foundation of it is, you know, our heritage that we all share. So, and I guess that's it. So people get caught in things like, okay, this is the real deal. This is not because this is Cuban. That's why he's expected to play, etc. You know, it's not about that. It's not about music. And
I'm sorry. Yeah. If I can add to that, because I'm one of those guys that's very guilty of not being able to play outside of what traditional American jazz. Okay, let's play blue bossa, and I'll play the typical blue bossa type of bass line. And if I'm sure to somebody who's familiar with music from South America and the Caribbean, it's like, this sounds kind of corny. You know? But at the same time, I've been doing this for 30 years, so it's kind of, there's an essence that's kind of evolved out of it that I think other guys can just kind of latch onto, and then with their experience, we can come to some sort of thing and make music out of it. Okay? But I'm sure on the outside, this guy's never lived a day south of Florida. You know.
It's very important what Alwan just mentioned, which is called the stereotypes. This music reflects the society that it lives on. Of course, you know, our society, we all know, is not devoid of prejudice and so and so. And the political issue or the social statements, you know. Now we're dealing with sociology. But the music does reflect what's going on. So it's obvious that we're going to have stereotypes in the music as well. You know, some of the reviews for the Afro-Horn, the new CD, they're calling us Latin jazz now. Well, it's okay, like Miles Davis used to say, as long as they keep writing about you, it's fine. So, great. You know, at least we got a nomination in the Downbeat magazine, and we keep moving. Because you know, that's another characteristic of our society. You can't stay just there. You have to move on and keep progressing. In my individual career, as I was coming up, of course, my interest in all of this, especially the percussion, I'm a drummer, you know. Well, because of the stereotypes, there was a lot of confusion. And this confusion was levitated the first time I went to Cuba. I went to Cuba with Max Roach. I was very fortunate going into that type of level. And I immediately recognized that it ain't so. You know, like you say, this is the real deal. But most musicians that we encountered at that time, this was in the early 80s at the Jazz Plaza Festival, the musicians that we encountered, they were extremely worried about Thelonious Monk, you know, and Duke Ellington, you know. So it's the same, it's the same language, you know. Of course, we have, at that time, we had a political, you know what I'm saying, imposition, which broke, you know, our continuity, because we always been intrinsically related with Cuba, culturally, you know, socially speaking. You know, the flights in between, you know, Florida and Cuba were 45 minutes. You know, each 45 minutes there's a plane going and a plane coming in, you know. So all of that culture, you know what I'm saying, just nurtured, you know, the entire American, you know, format. So American music, has an incredible content, I would say, of Cuban music, But it's the same thing because Cubans were doing the same, learning, what was coming from the United States. Nat King Cole was a usual, performer of the Tropicana, in Cuba. That's the way it was. And this connection has not stopped. Even though the political thing might be what it is, it had never stopped. The curiosity never stopped. The evolution never stopped. Now the point that we're trying to make is that it's all an African content. And as a matter of fact, let me do this because within this conversation of stereotypes. Mongo Santa Maria wrote a tune called Afro Blue here in the United States. Now it's a jazz standard. Everybody knows Afro Blue. It's been recorded by so many people. And
explain a little bit more details
about Afro Blue.
Because
Some non-musicians.
Lots of people don't know it.
You gotta be thinking something I'm not thinking.
Yeah, I just say, because you gotta assume that a lot of people here never even heard the song.
Okay, how many people of you have heard Afro Blue?
To the musicians.
It's a jazz standard, right?
Yeah.
How many people you haven't heard Afro Blue? So,
I might have heard it, I don't remember the name of the...
play Afro Blue. The structure is a blues, what we call the 12-bar blues, which might not mean anything to you, but it's a blues format, 12 bars. It's written instead of a blues format. So here we encounter an idea of an Afro-Cuban musician, Mongo Santa Maria, facing, a tradition of African-American music, jazz, the blues, facing each other. So when I brought the tune to the group and I said, why don't we do Afro Blue? Roman very keenly said, his vast knowledge of Afro-Cuban folklore, he says, that tune actually comes, from a traditional song of the Yoruba people in Cuba. I said, really? And he sang it to us. This is fantastic. So why don't we put an arrangement where we include all these aspects, to show the people at Richmond College, how it relates to each other, how the blues relates to the Yoruba culture in Cuba, and how the Yoruba culture in Cuba relates to the blues here, and how it develops into this big world of jazz. So we started working at it, and we found that originally Mongo Santa Maria, if it means anything, to the non-musician people, wrote the tune in D minor, which everybody knows, well, musicians know where it's D minor, right? D minor. But then here comes John Coltrane and records the tune in F minor because of the quality of the instrument, the soprano saxophone. Right? The sonority of it, it's better in F minor. It's still a 12-bar blues in F minor. During the stereotypes that you were talking about, and the sociological aspect of it, of course, the record labels are managed, by the executives that are not really too familiar with what was going on with the music. So when the Farrell LPs came out, it said, Afro Blue by John Coltrane. And really everybody thinks that John Coltrane wrote the tune. But then Atlantic protested, and John Coltrane publicly.
Records, right?
Yeah, the LPs.
They let them know, they don't, Atlantic Records.
It says, they let Atlantic Records know it was not John Coltrane who wrote the tunes. It's Mongo Santa Maria. So in turn, John Coltrane had to apologize publicly. He says, I didn't write that tune. Mongo Santa Maria wrote the tune. But we still have this idea that John Coltrane wrote the tune. This is the stereotype of the thing. Because it's an American musician, it's not a Cuban musician, or a Latin musician,
So, can you explain the story about the same thing with the Quinto Batallón or something like that?
El Quinto Regimiento?
El Quinto Regimiento.
Yeah, we recorded on our first CD a tune from the Spanish Civil War called El Quinto Regimiento. El Quinto Regimiento was the tune, you know what I'm saying, of protest during the Civil War in Spain, you know, against Franco and the people that were fighting, you know. But John Coltrane recorded it as Ole, you know, Ole, Ole. So it's Ole, right? But in reality, it's El Quinto Regimiento. So when we recorded it, we didn't call it Ole, we know, composed by John Coltrane. No, we called it El Quinto Regimiento, which is part of the folklore and the tradition in Spain. That's what we did, you know, for that. So that alludes your question is how the Sirta. So you know, I guess we move on and we'll do the Afro group so they can see the elements. Another question before we do that? No question?
Non-musician question?
Non-musician question, please.
Here's what we do.
What brought you to Richland College? What brought you to Richland College?
These two ladies here, which I would like for them to stand up and receive an outstanding ovation.
Long-standing relationship with Richland College to do these kinds of things. So.
Thank you guys.
I just wanted to add something to your question about maybe the authenticity of certain styles. The thing to remember about playing jazz is like we're oftentimes known for interpreting things. Now, if you're hearing a group that is putting themselves out there as an Afro-Cuban folklore band, then of course it really needs to be authentic. But if you're putting in a jazz context, you know, oftentimes it is the musician taking elements of it and pretty much interpreting the style. Like for example, a trumpet player by the name of Kenny Dorham recorded an album, or he recorded a tune called Blue Bossa. Now, his interpretation of the bossa nova is a lot different from that of Antonio Carlos Jobim. You know, but it's okay because he's playing a bossa sort of under the umbrella of a jazz musician. So he's not putting himself out there as a bossa nova artist. And that's oftentimes what we do. You know, it's like I don't know very much about Afro-Cuban folklore, but I interpret the music and from my own experience, and as I think all the musicians here do. So that's the thing to remember. If it's a jazz group, oftentimes it will be interpreted. But it is to the responsibility of the musician to do the research. You want to have some knowledge, but at the same time, you do want to maintain, I think, your identity as a jazz musician.
Very important.
Well, I want to add, you know, about that because we have a percussion here. It doesn't mean that we are playing Afro-Cuban music. Percussion is just a rhythmic element that is part of all the layers that we create when we play. So we put different layers on top, horns, the rhythm section, the bass doing something, the drums, and then we have the maestro Roman Diaz, that he happened that he knows so much about folklore that that information traced back, I guess, through, you know, to Africa or something, you know. But he knows so much about it that the way that he approached, he played, is just interacting to whatever is happening at the moment without establishing any preconceived pattern of this is this or this is that. He's just reacting and interacting and with the whole collective. So that create like a very wide spectrum of styles that we are embracing in one single minute or one single moment. So I don't call this. I don't think this band, well, commercial-wise, or you know, like a label, Afro-Cuban band. The people expect certain thing, or Brazilian people expect certain thing, or Mexican music, people expect certain thing. It's just putting labels on certain styles, and they restricting the the creative aspect of the ensemble itself. So what we do is just embrace. He was talking about Franco and Spain and Quinto Elemento, etc. So we are not tied to play specific or come the information straight from Afro-Cuban, etc. So we are like a very conceptual group that we get information from everywhere, you know. So, and then
Like Roman Diaz calls it, puntos de contacto. Puntos de contacto. So, like Alwan was saying, he has such a vast knowledge of Afro-Cuban folklore. When he hears something, let's say in jazz that we're playing or something like that, he knows what goes with that. It's like a second nature. Like I come and present Afro Blue to him, and he said, "Oh, this is come from here." It's an immediate connection of what's going on. We started founding this site because we were working together with an Afro-Cuban ensemble directed by my wife. We were in New Orleans together, and we might be, finding ourselves, marching behind a second line on the street, and people is going with this beat going, and I said, "Romani, sounds like rumba," and he'll say, "Puntos de contacto." We had so many experiences like that. This is one of the reasons why we put this band together. Like this is one of the reasons why he is here. This Los Puntos de Contacto is what it is. And it really it clears out confusion, and it brings light. And of course, what this music is about is freedom. So it educates freedom. And the ability to gain freedom is like, Sam is saying and Arwan is saying, you have to do your investigation, you have to do your legwork, you have to learn your scales, or you have to read your books, you have to be informed, you have to tie it up to a discipline in order to become free. This is what it is. But anyways, we're going to continue with this, or what are we doing in time?
Are you good? Afro Blue?
Afro Blue? Okay. We're going to do our version on Afro Blue, and if we still some time for some questions. Please play strong for the musicians. Pay strong attention to that recillo there, the Spanish thing, like Jerry Ron Morton used to, which is, what the bass is going to be carrying on. Okay, and how it really ties the whole thing together. Even though you're going to hear different switches of rhythm, I'm even going to play some little, just straight walking thing, So, but pay attention to that, as we work with you. Afro.
Baba fururu
At the Balcony Club, for those of you who are old enough to come to the Balcony Club. I don't want anybody sticking in that can't be. If you're a musician and you want to bring your instrument and take your chances, well, you come right on and join them. Oh, that's Wednesday night. But it starts at 9:30.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be tomorrow, yes.
The Wednesday, right? It's the Tuesday. That's usually the sequence.
Can I make a musical announcement as well?
I imagine.
Yeah. Does anyone know who Gladys Knight is?
Yeah.
Empress of Soul, right? Everyone knows her, right? Well, actually, she's going to be performing here in Dallas this May 3rd and May 4th. And she's actually going to be doing it in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, their church. And so she's going to have the chorus called the Saints United Voices. Anyone know that? She actually directs them, and there's going to be a performance there. And if anybody wants to have tickets to go, I'm just going to leave my number here up on the board, and you can be able to go and have tickets to see her direct. And pretty much what the performance is she helps do songs, and she helps them sing, and also kind of how it
interested, I'm gonna leave my number up here, and you're gonna see Gladys Knight this in 2 weeks, not this Saturday, but the next one.
No tips.
No, I don't know.
I'm just joking, I'm just joking.
No, they are. You know, her brother and everything. But if they are gonna be there, you can have a chance to see him as well. But if you have interested,
Okay, good deal. Any other musical notes?
Comments?
Chief? Well, thank you all for coming.
Music students, if we could have a few volunteers to help us move the gear back, thank you.